Morning and welcome to Reconnect TV episode, I think it's 25. I do apologise. I'm having every time I come on, I seem to be having a few technical difficulties. I've just been trying to type in the title of this morning's live about harmful energies. So we can talk about what they are and those kind of things. And every time I was typing it in, it was coming out backwards. And I was like, I don't know whether I've hit something on my keyboard. I'm normally really techie, really good with tech, and well, I think it's Facebook actually. Facebook seems to be having a few glitches at the moment. We seem to not be seeing comments as people are commenting. Last couple of weeks I haven't seen them. Now they've removed our ability to have live guest experts. So it's all a lot seems to be changing with Facebook at the moment. So apologies if you're watching and the odd thing seems to go wrong because now my phones keep beeping at me. It's marvellous, isn't it? Tech. Right, so I normally share this live on my page and it's not allowing me to do that either. I think I'll give up this morning and just try talking. Right, yeah, so what I wanted to talk about now is harmful energies and how we can recognise them and how we can really understand what we're living in. So what kind of energies might be surrounding us in our home or in a business that can be impacting us in negative ways, so that we're not fulfilling our potential, our business isn't thriving, our health might be not very, very good. There are all sorts of things in this quantum energy matrix, if you like, if you want to call it that, that can affect us on a daily basis. So what are they and where do they come from? And then tomorrow in my group, Divine Feminine CEOs, I'm going to be talking about some of the practices and techniques that geomancy employs to balance these energies and to, terribly sorry about this, text is going at me at the moment. Yeah, I need to talk to the tech divas. So yeah, so we're here to talk about harmful, sort of what people would consider harmful energies, where it comes from and how it can affect us, and really and what we can try and do about it to make things a little bit better. So I've got a few things I want to talk to you about today, as I say, with regard to geopathic stress. Well, one of the things that we call it, what people often come to me when things just don't feel right. So they don't feel right in their home, or their office just doesn't feel right. People can feel uncomfortable. I spoke a little bit about this last week in the live. Or people can feel, they can start to feel ill, or hairs on the back of your neck just feeling really creepy and uncomfortable. And particularly if it's somewhere where you live and work, obviously you don't want those kind of negative energies around you. And even things like, arguments in the home, they linger in the atmosphere. There's a place memory about all those words said in anger, all those things that can build up over time. It sits like dust in the corner that you never get around to cleaning out. So there's all sorts of energy in our environment that can affect us. So we're going to be looking at sort of really, if you like, what that means for us. So one of the things that there are sort of a few things that we're going to be talking about today is where these things tend to come from in terms of the energy of the earth itself and how that affects us. So what we want to be looking for is we want to be selecting the healthiest site to live and work from. Now, if we're an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur like I am, and I work from home, or I'm a location independent, that I can just take my laptop and work from anywhere, then I want to ensure, and I'm sure you do too, that you're working in a place that's going to be optimum for your productivity, for your health, to enable you to be inspired, to enable you to be able to really tap into your intuition and your inner knowing, particularly if you're a heart-centered, soul-driven entrepreneur and you want to, oh look, card is coming in now. You'll hear the doors going now. If you're a heart-centered, soul-aligned, driven entrepreneur, that your business is deeply meaningful to you, that you're shining your light to the world, you're using your message to help other women or help other people. Therefore, we want to be working in a place that supports that. that when we tap into our intuition, we're in a safe, supportive environment. Everything is going to be function at its best. We and our environment are going to be working as one. We are hugely impacted by our environment, physiologically, mentally, everything from the quality of light to the water running underneath the ground underneath us. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is, last week I spoke about identifying some of these energies, particularly what we call energy lays, which are lines of energy go around the countryside, and underground water. Now, there will be underground water underneath your property, and there will be energy lines going through your property. It's just scale of things might be not as big as an ancient sacred site, but you will have them nonetheless. And those energies are an expression of the consciousness of the earth, of Gaia. So we can tap into those levels of consciousness. So if you're watching this morning, I might not see your comments because nothing seems to be coming up again. But if you are tuning, I can see people are logged in. So if you're logged in, if you want to comment with a hi, that'd be great. If you're a newbie, hashtag newbie if you're new to these. If you've been here before, hashtag replay. And if you've got any questions about this, do post them up. If I don't get to them as we go, I'll always come back and answer them anyway. Yeah, so you've got any questions about, you know, any particular energy problems you may be having in your business or somewhere that you've lived that didn't feel right, and let us know what it felt like, and if you had any health symptoms or if it impacted your business. You know, it's not just where we live, it can be where we work as well. And particularly if we're entrepreneurs with our own business premises, we want to know that the energy and consciousness of that place where our business actually physically resides is good for us, is supportive to our objectives, is supportive of our goals, is supportive of what we're trying to achieve in life. So it's really important that we get that balance, that because when things aren't right, we feel it, and we can get kind of a neutral space, everything ticks along. But when we get a place working in conjunction with us, so our mind fields and its energy, and mind fields of your mind are an actual energy frequency that you emit. If you can get that and the energies of place in balance, and things really start to be enhanced, it's like, well, there are special places, you know, going into a huge cathedral is a special sacred place. You know, places of religious significance, they have that calm atmosphere where you feel you're in touch with the divine nature of the universe. Now, you don't want to be living in that all the time, but you want to be able to have that connection to source where you're working, because religion is great and religious places are great, but we don't live in a society that, a lot of people don't go to these places part of their regular spiritual practice. There are people who are deeply religious and follow their practices, and that's great, but there are also people who are extremely spiritual without being religious. And we tap in, I personally, you know, like to tap into the divinity and feel that feeling of oneness with the universe, but I need to be able to do it where I am at that particular point in time. So tapping into those energies. So what causes energies to go wrong, really? So in dowsing terms, when we use crystals to look at the energy of our place, which we did a little bit of last week, and we're going to be doing again tomorrow in my group Divine Feminine CEOs. In terms of sort of dowsing terminology, which is using a crystal or a pendulum of some description, I'll put mine somewhere in the slightly IT confusion. But when energies go wrong, this is called geopathic stress. It means that geo is of the earth, pathic is illness. It means there is illness or sickness in the ground, in the area where you live, and the energies that come into communication with the ground, that those energies aren't right. Now, I spoke a little bit about this last time. When those energies aren't right, we ourselves tend to go out of kilter. So when energies are too much, we tend to get hyper conditions where things all speed up, so your immune system starts to go hyper. So you get accelerated conditions around the sort of eating away at you. And then when you get energies that are too bogged down and slow, we get hypo conditions where things slow down and our body stops functioning correctly. It's under functions as opposed to over functions. And that's true not just in our physical health, it expresses itself in how our life pans out as well. So that if we're in bogged down energies, our whole life can become stagnant and slow, and we can't make any progress. And that's when the energies of place, if you like, are stagnant as well. We mirror that because there's no energy flow actually in the place where we live. There's my phone going off again. Do apologize. Tech is really helping me in this one. I love tech as well. It's not like I've got any problems with it. I love all of it. So what causes energies to go off kilter? Well, we ourselves affect the energy of place, how we behave. So if we do things around our home and in our garden that create sort of physical disturbances in the landscape. So let's say you have a big tree felled in your back garden. You haven't actually, and we'll get onto this next week, you haven't actually sort of spoke to the consciousness of the trees and the consciousness of place. If you're sort of digging up ponds on a larger scale, it'll be things in your environment, in your location, like quarrying, mining, or large scale construction will all have an impact on these energies, and it can be extremely detrimental. So if you live in an area where there's lots of construction going on, or you live in a quarrying area or a mining area, all these, the physical manipulation of our landscape affects these, what we call earth energies, which are the consciousness of Gaia. I mean, lots of countries and most traditional ways of living, tribes, right up until quite recently, we let the land know when we were going to be doing something. So there's lots of traditions still in other cultures where the land is blessed and talked to before a building is put on it. So it knows what's happening because there is a perception of consciousness in everything around us. So it's only really polite to tell somewhere what you plan to do with it. You know, we used to have tree felling ceremonies, we have building ceremonies, we had land, when land changes use from field to having a house put on it, we let it know. And there was, you know, but there was all sorts of implications to this, which a lot of, you know, culture, in some cultures this still happens, but particularly in modern Western society, we don't go along with these kind of things anymore because we perceive it as some kind of naivety of the ancients. Oh, look at that superstitious mumbo jumbo. But actually it's not superstitious mumbo jumbo, that we, quantum physics, you know, non-local connection, we know that the universe is conscious and we know that everything responds to us. And perceiving levels of consciousness in the land and our environment is really the basis of most religion. As I said, I've spoke about this before, it's just really when modern religion and science got kind of split that we took the soul and consciousness out of our natural environment and it became something really that was only prevalent in us. And I firmly do not believe that is the case, because I see spirits of nature, I see angelic beings, I see dark fae, if you like, the dark fairies. There's a level of, you know, what Christianity perceived as angelic beings to demonic, but that's just an appropriation of consciousness, if you like, that it says that at one end not very good and evil, and the other end is, oh, and you know, cherubs and angels and harps. Both are required. They are the negative and the positive, the yin and the yang. They form a balance. And negotiating with all these levels of consciousness in our environment helps us to be really connected to divine forces. And that then enables us to tap into these ebbs and flows of place and time. That means we are not blundering around like a bull in a china shop, just trying to forge our way with hustle and grind and force. And actually, that's not required, particularly for women, because we are receptive, we are giving. We're all about, this is who I am. I'm worthy of things coming to me. And if we're battling and grinding, we're not living in that divine feminine energy. So communicating with these energies and being in with the more subtle realms where things are more subtle and intuitive really helps us as female entrepreneurs. I think there's some comments coming up. If I don't reply, I'm sorry. They could have come up and then they're dropping again, coming up and dropping again. I can't see on the one device. And if I look at my phone, because I'll be looking at my phone like this, I won't be able to talk to you. I do apologise. So what causes, as I say, these energy scarf? So particularly there's destruction of the landscape. Well, construction like roads and buildings, and that can be big or small scale, quarrying, mining, again, big or small scale. They can affect, the bigger they are, they affect the wider area. If they're local, they'll affect the locality which you may be in. The other thing that causes these energies to go, as I said, is our behaviour now and, if you like, in the past. So human mental energy residues on site. So that means mental energy, if you like, that we have left in places after trauma, accidents, battles, despair, displacement, sickness, plague, famine, all those kind of things, where people have been in a really mental and emotional state of despair, or arguments, as I said, arguments in your own home. They leave what we call an energy residue. It lingers like a bad smell. And then that brings these energies down because we have not acted from a place of love. We may have acted from fear or hate, a sort of not they are negative emotions in that respect, that they're not positive and all love and light. And love and light has to be genuine. It hasn't not got to be, oh, I'm going to have a white robe and all love and light and never a bad thought enters my head, because that's not genuine. We all have thoughts of varying nature, and it's about owning those, but choosing to act still from a place of love and not pretending that you never have any bad thoughts, because we all do. So yeah, it's when human mental energy residues get left in place from traumatic or emotionally difficult experiences. So you may not necessarily know what has happened in the ground on which you live and work. And it doesn't necessarily have to be directly underneath where you live and work. It can be, as I said, in the neighborhood, in the surrounding area. And depending on the strength of that experience that was once had, bigger, like battlefields will extend for quite some way in the area, but things like car crashes, rapes, murders, all those kind of things, they'll affect a certain other area. It's finding out what's gone on in your area and how big that impact is. Now, the other thing that can cause these energies to go astray also is the natural energies of a place are geared up to certain things. Like I said, if you've got a predominant a site that's predominantly governed or impacted, if you like, influenced by underground water, then that has a certain energy to it. It is about being receptive, intuitive. It's the feminine energy. It's the flow. She can be dark, but it's more the feminine nature of the energy. Whereas if you work in an area that's got predominantly above ground energy, so what we call energy layers of a masculine energy, they're all action, go, forthright, chase. They are the strive, the hustle energies. So it's a question of looking at the predominant energy in where you live and work and saying, is the way I'm using the site, my house, my business, is it appropriate for these energies? Is the present use inappropriate for these energies? Because if you've got, let's say you own a therapy center or retreat center, and you want it to be somewhere where people can come and relax and do yoga and meditation or deep internal work or spiritual work, where they need to be in a supportive environment, where they need to be reflective, where they need to be calm, the last thing you need is a massive, great energy lay that's all aggression and go, 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 coming through one of your therapy rooms or your counseling room or your room where you're going to be doing deep states of meditation. That's not the right energy in the environment. Therefore, what you're doing is inappropriate for use. So therefore, people are going to be battling upstream if you've got a lovely room and you want 20 people in a deep meditative yoga state. You don't want energy layers going through it. You don't want to be downstream, if you like, with this energy of bringing in despair or displacement, or the energy of war or famine or plague or, land clearance, or, there's so much trauma in our landscape from the Second World War, the First World War. There's, like I said, battle sites, disease, typhoid. There's huge lots of negative energy in our landscape. It doesn't mean it's everywhere, and we, by man's activities, we often trap that negative energy in. We don't do any of the land blessings or water blessings that are traditionally there to heal the environment. The pagan year particularly has different celebrations through it. So we have the shortest day. Then we have Imbolc on the 1st of February. You know, we have 8, well, there's 8 pagan festivals really throughout the year that often involve water blessing and fire ceremonies. Those are to clear and heal energies of place. That's one of their functions. So that traditionally we had 8 times during the year where we cleaned our environment, where we made sure that all those negative energies and residues that can build up, we made sure we removed them on a regular basis. Now we don't do that anymore. And those can be particularly difficult to live with when we need to clear them. So we then can embody those energies and find ourselves becoming stuck, stagnant, ill, unable to run our business, unable to prosper. Our home can start to get even functional problems within it of leakages and waters and things that you just can't get to the bottom of. Your business can find that you're not attracting the clients, you're not making the return, the wrong people are coming to you, and it's not necessarily to do with marketing or anything you've done. It can be other things. It's just that you are in a place that energies do not support what you are trying to achieve. So we want to get ourselves in the state and the place so that the energies that we are surrounded by support what we're trying to do. And it doesn't mean we're trying to make them do anything for us. It just means that we can clear the energies of place, capitalize on what we've got, and those energies can support us. So the other thing as well that can lead us feeling not so good about where we work is the very real problem of sick building syndrome. Now, you can look a lot of this up online. This is actually a huge problem that the World Health Organization actually acknowledges, that new buildings particularly are often sick, and it's a massive percent. It used to be, I need to look up the figures, but at one point new buildings, I think it was over 80% of them were classed as sick to be in the fact that the air quality didn't support our health, the light quality didn't support our health, in terms of how light is extremely important for your brain chemistry, and your brain chemistry governs your whole reality, your physical being, your mental outlook, everything. So the light quality doesn't support your brain chemistry. The sound quality, the reverberation of sound around the building, how sound carries, how you hear, how you feel, didn't support our health and well-being. And in the electromagnetic stress, and this is a very real problem, didn't support our health. There are an awful lot of people now suffering from electromagnetic stress sensitivity. This is everything from your TV, your cordless phones, your mobile phones, your Wi-Fi, your smart meters. They all work on hertz frequencies, in this electromagnetic hertz frequency that is around us everywhere. It's part of the electromagnetic frequency of the earth. They interrupt these frequencies at levels that physically are harmful to us. Now, one of the worst culprits is actually cordless phones in your home. Mobile technology is bad, but cordless phones are really not the best thing to have. And this has a very real effect on people. Electromagnetic stress then actually causes your body to go into fatigue, headaches, all sorts of things. So part of the role of a geomancer is actually to look at what they call technopathic stress, which is when all these things go wrong, and to measure your sensitivity to these things. Fortunately now we can get hold of things that we can wear and carry around us that enable us to balance these frequencies out and our body. And I have one that I wear around all the time, because I'm an online entrepreneur. I work on Wi-Fi. I work, I have a mobile phone quite a lot with me. I make sure I have plenty of time away from these things, and I always go for a walk every day to ground these energies out. But technopathic stress, it will come more into the news, and it will come more into the fore, particularly with the difficulties of 5G that they're now trying to just roll out at random without any test phase. And there's an awful lot of research as to the shockingly debilitating effects of these frequencies. So you need time out from your Wi-Fi and your mobile and all those kind of things. So fundamentally, what makes energies go wrong then is human mental energy residues from past trauma and emotional experiences that we haven't brushed up, swept up, cleaned up, mopped up and dealt with, that we've just left sitting over a landscape. it's to do with our manipulation of our physical environment in terms of mining, quarrying, construction, building alterations, all those kind of things. Man, as a species, man is particularly adept at manipulating our environment for our survival, which is a great skill to have. It also means it comes with a payoff in detrimental effects to the more subtle energy realms that we no longer have around us when we live in a built-up environment. The third thing is that we are using buildings, the natural energies of the site rather, are inappropriate for their present use. So you're trying to do something in a place that doesn't support your goals, aims, business and aspirations. And finally, the fourth thing is that causes these harmful energies is sick building syndrome. So those are the four things that you might want to think about that potentially are in your area that can be affecting you and impinging on your ability to function, be successful. Don't get me wrong, your inner landscape has got an awful lot to do with your success, your own mindset and your own belief system in your ability to manifest. But nonetheless, we are also subject to forces beyond our control that are outside of us, that are part of the universe's mind and not our internal landscape. So therefore, there's the two things then. There's what you believe and think you can achieve is what you will believe and what you will achieve. You know, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. That is incredibly important. But as a species, we have manipulated our environment to such that we have polluted, if you like, our environment and the local energies so that we can be trying to swim upstream when we're trying to do a lot of this work. So what we call geopathic stress or harmful energies does very much exist. And it's one of the things that I deal with in terms of house clearing and building clearing and working in properties, is to look at geopathic stress. But for those of you who want to learn really more about it and to be able to keep your own house clear, then my signature program, Sacred Feminine Living, all this kind of work is covered in there about how to look after where you live, how to be in tune with the energies, how to understand how they ebb and flow at different times of the year, how to notice when things have gone wrong and how to deal with them. And talking about how to deal with them in my group, Divine Feminine CEOs, tomorrow we're going to be looking at some of the techniques for identifying geopathic stress and where it comes from and things that you can do so you can understand where it comes from. And then on next week in this thread, we're going to be looking at what they call a geopsychic stress, which is stress relating to, if you like, elementals and nature spirits. So we've got away from looking at energy as just energy, and we're going to be looking at energy as consciousness, as in what scientists and philosophers call the more than human realms of consciousness. We are not the only conscious beings on the planet. Animals, plants, rocks, there are non-physical beings like fairies, divas, elementals, angels, cherubims, seraphs, whatever you want to call them. And our activities, again, could cause stress to them. So geopsychic stress is what we'll be talking about next week. But yeah, so those were the four things that really cause the energies in your environment to mess up. It's us, our own mental state, manipulating our environment, the fact that we're trying to do something in a place anyway that doesn't support what we're trying to do because the energies are all wrong by default, by natural default. And then finally, again, it's manipulating, it's sick building syndrome. It's like air, whatever quality can all make us feel pretty cruddy. And tomorrow in my group, Divine Feminine CEOs, we're going to be looking at identifying some of these things, how you would go about it, how to recognize when things are wrong. So if you're not a member of my group, Divine Feminine CEOs is for women entrepreneurs who are on a spiritual journey, and you might be a little bit more not entirely satisfied with some of the real flaky and woo-woo stuff that goes on in the internet that actually bears no relation to reality or physics or science, because a lot of woo-woo stuff, as it's called, is actually physics and science. It's just simply because it's beyond our normal spectrum of sight and hearing and experience that we perceive it to be woo-woo because we can't see it or hear it properly. So, and it's just dismissed as flaky and woo-woo. But you know, I always say to myself that any sufficiently advanced technology to someone who isn't that advanced appears like magic. And it doesn't mean that that science doesn't go into spirituality. It very much does. A lot of scientists are incredibly spiritual because they see the marvels in the universe. So I'll be running this as watch party later for those of you who haven't caught it live. If you caught it live, brilliant. If you've left some comments, I will get back to you. I just can't see them. And hopefully you'll join me for part 2 tomorrow, where we'll be looking at how to identify when there are harmful energies in your environment. So I hope to see you all tomorrow. Right, and then I hope Facebook will respond and let me actually log off now, because that would be really good. So if you watched it, thanks very much. I will see you all tomorrow in my group, or hopefully so. Bye.